Ivy and Bean Make the Rules. Written by Annie Barrows and illustrated by Sophie Blackall. Never forever. Girls are strong. Girls are great, sang Nancy, boying into the kitchen. Girls have the power to create. She stomped her foot and put one arm in the air. At girl power forever. Stop singing that song, said Bean grumpily. She sucked the milk out of her spoon. Then she slurped down the cereal that was left behind. Nancy watched. That's got to be the slowest way to eat cereal in the entire world. I know, said Bean, slurping. That's why I do it, to make it last longer. Well, cut it out, Nancy said. I have to get to camp. Today's the first day. As if Bean didn't know that already. Camp, camp, camp. Nancy had been talking about it for weeks. And there it was, right on her t-shirt, in big letters. Girl Power Forever. For spring break, Nancy was going to Girl Power Forever camp. Bean was too young for Girl Power Forever camp. You had to be 11. If you were 7, like some people, the only camp you could go to was Puppet Fun. Bean would never in a million years go to Puppet Fun. Nancy dropped her backpack on the kitchen table and opened one of its many pockets. Nancy's backpack was a fancy zebra-striped kind. There was a tiny troll doll attached to one of its zippers. Bean's backpack was dirty and orange, and she had tried to draw an eagle on the front, but it hadn't turned out right. It looked like a slug with wings. Nancy pulled out her special folding brush and brushed her already brushed hair. Without even looking, she made a ponytail and fixed it with a sparkly scrunchie. Hurry up, she said to Bean. Just eat it. Bean took a long, slow slurp. I don't see why I have to hurry, she said. I'm not going to your old camp. You can go when you're 11, Nancy said. Bean scowled. No way! Camp? Ha! Not for me. She shook her head. I've got too much other stuff to do. Nancy smiled. What kind of stuff? Bean shook her head like she had so much to do that she couldn't even begin to tell about it. Nancy patted her shoulder sympathetically. Finish your cereal. You have to go with Mom to drop me off at camp. Stop feeling sorry for me, snapped Bean. But Nancy had already left the room, her ponytail swishing, on her way to have secret big kid fun that Bean wasn't allowed to have. Bean pushed out her chair and stood up. I'm not a baby, you know, she yelled. 5 million girls in pink Girl Power Forever shirts were squirming around outside the youth center, waiting for camp to begin. They hugged each other and squealed. They showed each other their cell phones. They sang, they danced, they giggled. They were all bouncy and happy and busy. Bean stood beside her mother. Unbouncy, unhappy, unbusy. She watched as Nancy rushed to her friend Dee Dee. Once they had hugged and squealed, they gave each other piggyback rides. Then they traded scrunchies and squealed some more. Then someone blew a whistle and all 5 million girls swarmed into the youth center. Bye, Mom, called Nancy, swinging her backpack over her shoulder. Bye, Beanie. Beanie? Phooey. Bean turned and began to trudge home beside her mother. At least she didn't have to trudge far. The youth center was a big shed on the edge of Monkey Park, just a block and a half from Bean's house. What's that camp about, anyway? Bean asked. Not that she cared. Her mom stopped and rattled around in her purse. I've got a brochure in here somewhere, she said. Oh, here it is. She pulled out a pink sheet of paper with daisies on it. Bean read, Girl Power Forever. A week of inspiration and fun for girls, ages 11 to 14. Crafts, nature study, mind-body strength training, drama, first aid, dance, social skills. Plus our role models, great women of history. Hands-on learning in a safe and supportive atmosphere. Snacks provided. Her mom smiled at her. You wish you were going to camp too, don't you? Bean was getting dang tired of people looking at her sympathetically. No, and she didn't. Not really. I can still get you into puppet fun, her mom said. No, Bean yelled. I've got too much to do. Ivy and I have important plans for this week. Her mother stopped walking and crouched down to look in Bean's eyes. Okay, you're probably too grown up for puppet fun anyway. You're getting to be a pretty big kid. Bean nodded. She was. Her mom went on. I think you might be old enough to do something new. You're going to get me a dirt bike? Bean broke in. Her mom laughed. No, I wasn't thinking of a dirt bike. I was thinking that maybe you were big enough to come here to Monkey Park by yourself, if you come with Ivy, and if it's okay with Katrine. Katrine was Ivy's mom. Bean sighed inside herself and turned to look at Monkey Park. Its real name was Mrs. Taylor Hopper and Such Memorial Park, but everybody called it Monkey Park because it had a fountain with a statue of a smiling monkey in the middle. The monkey was dressed in a shiny blue suit, and he held a big shiny platter of oranges and grapes. The fountain water spurted out of his hat. Besides the fountain, Monkey Park had one big flat field and one not-so-flat field, and a playground filled with babies. There were some trees and some bushes and some flowers. Kids played soccer at Monkey Park. Families had picnics there. Babies crawled up the play structure. Nothing exciting had ever happened in Monkey Park. Going to Monkey Park was the opposite of going to Girl Power Forever camp. But Bean knew her mother was trying to be nice, so she nodded. Okay. They walked home. As they climbed the front stairs, Bean's mom said, You can always help with the dishes if you're looking for something to do. Big kids help. Sorry, said Bean. I'm only 7. Unmagic Treehouse. Bean did have important plans. Okay, one important plan. It was about a board. She had found a good board, a really good one. It was wide and strong and smooth. It had probably been a bookshelf once, but when Bean saw it, she knew that it was meant to be a treehouse. It would be the floor of Bean's treehouse, her secret hideaway, her fort, her almost apartment up in the leaves where no one could come unless Bean gave her permission. Except Ivy, because Ivy was going to help her build it. They were going to be tree housemates. There was one problem with Bean's plan. Trees. Bean's backyard had trees, but not trees with nice, low, friendly branches. It had trees with high, unfriendly branches. Bean had tried putting her board in a bush, but that didn't work. The bush had sort of fallen over. Bean had gritted her teeth and lugged the board to her front yard, where there was a plum tree with some sturdy branches. A front yard treehouse was not as good as a backyard treehouse, but Bean was trying to be open-minded. Another problem was nails. Bean was not supposed to use them. Or hammers. Her dad had promised to nail the board into the plum tree, but he kept forgetting. Now, as Bean thought about Nancy and Girl Power Forever camp, she decided she couldn't wait for her dad. She had to make her treehouse today. No hammer and nails? Fine. She would find another way, a better way. Nancy would come home from camp and wish she had a treehouse like Bean's. Bean might let her sit inside it for 1 minute. Bean looked over at Ivy's house on the other side of Pancake Court. The curtains were closed, but that was okay. Bean could do it on her own. Girls are strong, girls are great, she sang softly. Girls have the power to create. Feeling determined, Bean set to work. The first question was how to stick things together without nails. Easy peasy, duct tape.
Bean raced inside and came out with a thick roll of tape. She was getting more determined by the moment. Probably kids would cluster around the bottom of the plum tree, hoping to be allowed in her treehouse. She shoved the board up into the tree's branches, looked at it for a second, and then went inside to get a chair. She banged her knee, dragging the chair over the lawn. And it wasn't very good for the lawn. But at last she was ready. She stood on the seat, wrapping tape around the board and the branch. Tape, tape, tape. Okay, done. She got down and moved the chair to the other end of the board. Tape, tape, tape. Hi. Yikes! Bean grabbed the tree to keep from falling off her chair. Did I scare you? Ivy looked pleased. I'm trying to walk without making any sound. Why do you want to do that? Asked Bean. So I can creep up on people and cast spells on them, Ivy said. Ivy was going to be a witch when she grew up, so she needed to know things like that. Oh, can you hold on to this side while I tape the other end? Ivy stood on the chair beside Bean. Bean taped up a storm. There, she exclaimed, done. They both got off the chair and stood back to look. The board looked surprisingly small there among the branches of the plum tree. In fact, it looked puny. It didn't look like a treehouse. It looked like a board with lots of tape on it. Bean's throat got thick and hot. Big kids made tree houses all the time. They didn't have to use tape. They used nails and a hammer. They stood on ladders, not chairs. They pounded nails while telling jokes, and their tree houses were as big as regular houses and secret, not out in front of everyone in their front yards. Big kids built things, made things, cooked things, had things, knew things, and Bean didn't, because she was just a little kid. Ivy watched Bean's face. We could fix it, she said. She meant the treehouse. No, said Bean, I'm sick of this treehouse. She kicked the plum tree. What good is a treehouse anyway? You just sit in it. It's dumb. Well, said Ivy, you could eat cookies in it. Eating is boring, said Bean crabbily. I want to do things, fun things, like crafts and nature study. Crafts and nature study? Ivy asked. What? From her pocket, Bean pulled out the Girl Power Forever paper and handed it to Ivy. That's what I want to do, she said. I want to do all that. Ivy read the list. Crafts, nature study, first aid. She looked up at Bean and then back at the paper. Dance, drama, social skills, great women of history. She began to smile. Bean, we can do all this stuff. We don't need to go to camp. We can make our own camp.